Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Young Alumni Virtual Chat, Creating a Social Life for Yourself After UMass, brought to you by the UMass Amherst Alumni Association. My name is Nicole Young, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Young Alumni and Constituent Programs for the Alumni Association, and I will be the host and moderator for this evening's session. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. All participants will be muted throughout the presentation in order to reduce background noise. This virtual chat will be recorded, and the recording will be posted to the Alumni Association's YouTube channel in the coming weeks. By joining this session, you are giving your consent to such recordings. We have a limited amount of time, so we will save Q&A for the end. As the presentation is taking place, if you have a question, please use the chat function to send your questions to me. I will then compile your questions, and our panelists will answer them at the end of the facilitated conversation. And now, without further ado, I'm very excited to begin tonight's panel. Tonight's panelists are Devin Basile and Tiffany Learn, and they are all recent graduates of UMass Amherst. They have each volunteered their time this evening to talk about how they've each created social lives for themselves after graduating from UMass. Thank you, Devin and Tiffany, for joining us this evening.
For having us.
Thanks for having us.
Cool. So I have a series of questions. The conversation will probably last about a half hour to 40 minutes, and then next I will open it up to Q&A. And since there's actually very few people, what I might do is turn the microphones off and then have people just engage in questions that way. So the first question that I have for you both, and we're actually going to go in alphabetical order. Devin, if you can answer first. If you could both just introduce yourselves, like talk about where you are now, when you graduated from UMass and things like that.
All right. Yeah. So Devin Basile, Nicole, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. It's nice to see some familiar faces. So my name's Devin. I'm from Springfield. Went to school in Amherst. Graduated 2015 with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. While I was at UMass, I also was involved in University Program and Council UPC. I moved to Hoboken, New Jersey, where I work for ExxonMobil in their environmental services group as a project manager for managing environmental liability for the corporation. So that means a number of things from construction projects to environmental assessments and risk assessments. I also I work in New Jersey, different parts of New Jersey, but in Hoboken is really where home is. I have a lot of a large community here, mostly of friends I know from school, and also friends that I've met throughout the past few years, throughout the community and church is really where a lot of my friends come from, and really just I enjoy cooking and just relaxing and winding down from work. So
cool, thank you. And Tiffany?
Hi, I'm Tiffany Learn. I am also a graduate of class of 2015. I got my bachelor's in environmental design, but I ended up staying an extra year and participated in the accelerated program where I got my master's in regional planning. So I'm a 2015 and 2016, I guess. I am originally from Newton, Massachusetts, which is a suburb right outside of Boston. And I am back in Boston area. I currently am a program manager for Union Square Main Streets. It's a nonprofit. It can kind of be seen as a business association, except that we're geographically focused. So I'm focused in Union Square, Somerville, where we provide technical assistance for local businesses and, just trying to make sure that they continue to thrive, particularly with new development coming in.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the first question that I have for both you and Devin and Tiffany, you could start us off is, can you talk about a little bit more about where you live now and how it's different from your UMass campus life?
Devin, oh wait, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, Tiffany, if you can go first.
I think the major difference is just proximity to friends, as small difference as that may be. When you're at UMass, you're kind of in a bubble. Most of my friends were no more than 10 minutes away, or even walking distance. So it was always so easy to just catch a friend and say, hey, do you want to go to McDonald's? Or hey, do you want to go get pizza? Where nowadays my schedules are more structured and I really I schedule time to hang with my friends. It's not as easy and casual to just grab a drink, particularly because most of my friends, even though they're in the Boston area, they work in Cambridge, Boston, Brookline, and it's all close, but not close enough where you can easily catch each other. The difference is being, I guess, real adults and, setting a time to meet at 8 o'clock on a Friday instead of just whimsically.
And then Devin?
It's definitely, spontaneity is a little bit harder as an adult. It's definitely something that I would agree with. So I live in Hoboken, New Jersey. It's right in between the two tunnels that go into Manhattan from the New Jersey side. So in between the Lincoln and Holland tunnels. Hoboken culturally, it's a very commuter-centric city. So there's a lot of people that work in Lower Manhattan and Manhattan proper, and financial services, but also a number of other industries. I do not work in Manhattan, but mostly that's really what Hoboken's about. A lot of young people, and then also as you work your way uptown, you see more strollers, so families or folks that work in Manhattan. So the culture here, there's a lot of people like the city. It's considered like the sixth borough of New York, but it can also be like a very lonely place, right? Everyone goes to work, they come home. So, I mean, community for me was pretty important. It took a long time to build that. Just making sure that you have the ability to, make those plans outside the work hours with friends. And that's a common theme that I see with a lot of my friends. A lot of people aren't from the area. They move here to pursue careers and jobs in the greater New York area. And so that's just a little bit about Hoboken.
Cool, thank you. So Devin, I'm going to continue on with you since you're on the screen here, and then we'll go on to Tiffany with this next question. What hobbies from your UMass social life have you been able to maintain?
Yeah, that's so. I did a lot of cooking my last couple of years in school when I had roommates, and so that's something that I've been able to maintain and evolve. When you're living in Puffton Village, the meals were more centered around ease of production. We did have like taco night, which was pretty fun. But now, I just like cooking and putting the food that I've made in front of my friends and just eating around the table. Whereas before, I was just kind of used to those means to eating. So that's something that's different. I'm trying to catch the rest of the question.
And how you've been able to maintain that, and then also your volume, if you could turn it up just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Can you hear me now? How's that?
Yes, that's perfect.
All right, sorry, I'll talk louder. How I've been able to maintain that? It's tough, definitely during the week. It takes a lot of commitment. But just when I was an engineer, I studied a lot on Saturday and Sunday, so I don't have to do that anymore. So. That really frees up a lot of time, I guess, with the transition. So that's weekends are the answer, right?
Cool. And then Tiffany, what hobbies from your UMass social life have you been able to maintain?
I think similar to Devin, cooking, hiking, picking. I'm a huge fruit picker. It's a little bit further. So, at UMass, because we were so close to so many farms, I was able to go pick apples or peaches within 10, 20 minutes away. Now I still do it. It's just that I have to make time for it because it's about more of a 45-minute to an hour drive. So those are things I actually really enjoy doing. And again, also cooking. So, maybe not so much during the week, but instead of going out with friends, we'll have cook sessions or dinner dates together. And this way we're able to learn new foods and learn new techniques to cook as well. And same goes with hiking. I think, again, it's just the proximity is further, but still be able to do it, but maybe more so on the weekends specifically rather than during the week.
So Tiffany, this is a follow-up question. So do you come back to Western Mass to do the fruit picking and hiking, or have you found places closer to where you live to do those things?
So no, as much as I love UMass, I can't always make the 2-hour drive back as much as I really, really love to. So how I guess, I think this goes into like maybe a later question, but as how I'm able to kind of, I Google a lot of times. So in terms of picking particularly, I wanted to find places nearby. So I had Googled, where do you pick apples or where do you pick peaches? And I asked Google and they listed about 7 different places and they ranged about 40 to an hour away. Most of them were kind of in the central Mass area.
Okay.
And some were north of Massachusetts. So like I think I went to one farm that was just on the borderline of New Hampshire. But I think those are great because they call for adventure. So I was at that farm and then I was like, hey, I'm only 20 minutes away from New Hampshire. Why not? So I drove to Portsmouth and then spent the day in New Hampshire. So I think just being willing to just Google and then find places. And that's the same with hiking. I asked around and a lot of friends recommended Mount Monadnock, which is a tough mountain. Don't think it's
wow.
easy. It's toughy. I think I stopped at least 10 times. I totally was overambitious and I was like running up the mountain thinking I was such a baller and then I was dying by the first hour. It was kind of embarrassing. People who I passed just kind of looked at me and they're like, see you later, and kept going. But yeah, I know Mount Monadnock, the New Hampshire, Vermont area is just a great and beautiful place to be, particularly during the fall. It's no UMass, but it'll do for now.
Oh, cool. Thank you. So I'm going to start this question off with Devin and then to Tiffany. And Devin, you kind of talked a little bit about this earlier, but if you could elaborate, who is in your social circle? Is it mainly people from work or people outside of work? And if it is mainly people from outside of work, how did you meet those people?
All right. Before that, I'll say that there definitely aren't as many trees where I live than there are in Amherst. So that's a challenge when we live in northern New Jersey. But anyways, so people in my social circle. So I do have a good group of young people that I know from my work group that live in the area. So I do spend some time with them, but not a majority. Most of the people that I know are just from in the Hoboken, young professionals in the Hoboken area. Mostly meeting them from just like connection events that are in the city or that we have in the town, and just different folks I know from church groups and the like. And I know what's cool about that is, you don't have to talk about work all the time with people that you don't work with, and you really get to understand like what people do, where they come from, and get that understanding of like, this is really a transient city. People don't live here for long periods of time. They're here to work in New York. They're from different places. So and that's where most of my friends are from, are come from.
Cool. And then Tiffany, same question. Who is in your social circle? And essentially, if it's made up of people from work or outside of work, and if outside of work, how did you find those people?
So my social circle actually is majorly outside of work. As much as I love my colleagues, I spend too much time with them, so I kind of avoid them in a way. But so most of my friends, I'm lucky because I live in the greater Boston area. A lot of my friends who went to UMass with me also moved to Boston. So I have that group of friends, but just being involved. So I was in a sorority in college, Chi Omega, and I'm actually part of the alumni chapter board. So through that network and chapter, I'm able to meet other Chi Omegas, not necessarily from UMass, but from other universities, which is kind of neat. I have friends now that are from Arizona, but we were from the same sorority. And also meeting friends of friends, friends have friends, and so they'll introduce you, they'll bring them to events as well. So that's also how I meet them. And then lastly, joining groups. So like running club, I am actually right now currently preparing for a half marathon in 3 weeks. And I joined a running club in the area, Heartbreak Hill, and they have running sessions Wednesdays and Saturdays, totally free, which is super nice. You don't have to buy anything. You just go and attend. And I typically actually go alone. As scary as that is, it's such a good encouragement to go and talk to other people. I find that if I go with a friend, I end up just chatting with my friend and being antisocial. So when I go alone, I'm kind of like, I'm a free bird. So I go and start talking to the person next to me and be like, hey, like, are you running a half marathon too? Cool. Do you want to run with me for the next 10 miles? Okay, great. Don't leave me behind. So kind of like stuff like that, like, being, being willing to just go and chat with new people and don't be scared. And yeah, there's so many free things and so many ways. Just find your interest, and there's definitely a group for it, probably.
Cool. Thank you. Next question, and we're going to start off with you, Tiffany, and then go back to Devin. Have you made any changes in the way you interact with others or present yourself in order to create the social circle you have now?
I want to say no. I don't totally actually get that question. I want to say no. I mean, maybe I avoid talking about work the most. I think maybe that's the only change when I meet other people. I think I'm like, the first thing I don't say is like, hey, I'm a program manager. I'm just like, hey, what's up? So I don't know. I don't know if I'm actually answering the question per
Yeah,
se,
you're getting there. The reason why I wanted to ask this type of question is I was thinking about myself, because I've moved a lot since I graduated from undergrad. And one of the things that I've had to force myself to do, and it's really interesting, the two of you know me at the stage of being the extreme extrovert. I am still fairly shy with introducing myself to new people. So a lot of times I usually have to give myself the pep talk before talking to people, to be like, just go up there and talk to them. It's not going to be that hard. It's not going to be that hard. So I'm actually more of an introvert than the two of you may actually realize, but I'm also a good actor. So Devin, if you wanted to take the question, have you made any changes in the ways in which you interact with others or how you present yourself in your new place at all?
Yeah. So that's a great question, and I think it really speaks to like the biggest challenge that I faced while coming out of school. Like at UMass, in college, you have a large number of people, a large number of opportunities for social interactions, forced social interactions if you're joining clubs or in your study circles. So granted, there are some challenges, moving into high school and to college, but I think, moving into the real world, there are less of those opportunities. You're working a lot. You're not forced into so many social interactions. That's why I speak to the fact that like there's so many people in Hoboken, there's so many people in New York City, but it can actually be like a very lonely place because you can go to work and come home and no one will ever check in on you, right? If you live alone. Your roommates, you don't necessarily have a roommate. I happen to have them, but one of the big challenges was just trying to understand, okay, well, now I came from school having all these friends, having all these connections. Now I'm in the real world and like it's all gone. So that actually that was challenging for me, and it hurt a lot to come out of school and have to really just start over. But what I learned out of it was, instead of having like a lot of connections, right, I've established like a good amount, but deeper, and it took a pretty long time to establish and grow into the friendships that I have today, those connections, right? So that's really the way that I see it is it's more of a longer play. It's more of an investment as you step into the real world, and it matters how you attack it. And it took a long time in the beginning when just like you're talking about the pep talks, like stepping into like a connection event or some sort of event, and just like staying there. Because you step in, you don't know anybody, and you're like, "Get me the hell out of here!" But you end up talking to someone, you grab a drink, you meet people, and that momentum kind of carries you into, okay, the real world isn't that crazy, It's not that hard, but you do have to make that conscious effort to step out and out of your comfort zone and continually challenge yourself to like figure out, okay, well, what type of people do I want to hang out with, and where do I want to be?
Cool. So this is actually an add-on question that I just thought about, given that, Devin, you live so far away from your family, and then Tiffany, because I do know you personally, I know both of you personally, you live fairly close to your family and also where you grew up. How often do the two of you get to see your families at all?
Pretty frequently, because I live so close. My family's also a little geeky, and we have Monday family night. So I have a designated I can't have any, I'm like literally told not to make plans on Mondays. So I have family dinners every Monday unless it's dire work that I can't get out of. So I do see them pretty frequently, and I am very lucky because I live so close to them.
Cool. And then Devin?
Yeah, a little less frequent. I mean, it's a good thing that my family lives in like the Springfield/Amherst area, so it's like there's a number of excuses to go home. But I think, over the past 6 months, maybe every other month, 6 to 8 weeks, I think is what I try to target for like seeing them. I also like to try to invite them down. So the first year I was here, I invited them down for Christmas, so we did some Christmas activities here. My mom loves coming down, so it's just something that, and my brothers. So it's challenging too. And one of my brothers in Boston, so trying to get everybody back together is tough. But every couple months, I think it's like a 2 or 3, 3 or 4 hour drive. So.
Oh, that's not bad. Cool. The next question I have, and then Devin, you can take this question first. What new activities do you do, and how did you discover them?
New activities. So, New York City. So there's so many things to do in New York. Museums. I love like the High Line, which is in Chelsea. Also, like eating. You're gonna think that all I do is eat all the time, but there's a great Hispanic communities around the Hoboken area. So great Hispanic food. Something Cuban food, especially. We don't really have that a lot in Amherst. And yeah, just trying to find, new places, not just in the city, but outside. You go up to New York, you can do some hiking and whatnot. So I don't know if there's 2 parts to that question. I think I might have well answered one.
Oh, no.
Just one.
Just essentially, like, it sounds like you were able to discover those new activities by just walking around and stuff. And then also, and I don't know if this is a new activity, but it sounds like it is, given that I do know you. Your church. How did you find your new church home when you moved?
Oh yeah. So I grew up, Catholic, which, and I didn't really go to church too much, but when I was in college, I didn't at all. And then a friend of mine recommended one in town, and so I started going there. And it's really a mission of the church is community. A big part of it is like building community, loving the city, and specifically around the understanding that in our society in Hoboken, like people work long hours and don't have a lot of time for community. And so we have groups like every Monday I meet with a group of guys and we just have dinner and catch up with each other. And so that's something where, we are all from different places where no one's from the New Jersey area, or, maybe a very small percentage of people are, but we're able to find a home here in a place where none of us are from. So.
Cool. The next question I have, and then Tiffany, if you want to start us off with this, how do you spend your weekday evenings once you're done with work, and how do they differ from your time on the weekends?
Sorry, I thought Devin was taking that one.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Tiffany. How do you spend your weekday evenings once you're done with work, and how do they differ from your time on the weekends?
I'm probably less social during the week, I guess. So usually I go to work, and then if I have time, I'll go to the gym. Otherwise, I'm usually so tired, particularly because sometimes my job requires evening meetings. So I would probably just want to go home right away. So weekends are more socializing. So that's when I'll go to birthday parties or gatherings or dinners, or just meet up with friends more often. So I'm kind of 2 different people during the week and the weekend.
Cool. And then Devin?
Yeah, you try to put a lot into your social schedule. I think early on, that's what I tried to do when I started working, and I have to get up for work very early, so it's really developed quite a lot of discipline in my life. Not because I want to, just because I have to. So If I try to be social during the week, I will fall asleep all weekend. So, so it's not glorious. It's not crazy. I try to cook what I can, and really just sometimes it's just go home and just rest, naps, and but I do like to take a walk around the town sometimes, go down to the water, relax, which is not something I ever really considered or did a lot in college, which is seemingly pretty important to me now, just having time to be able to just do nothing. But if not, like cooking, reading, and just trying to give myself energy for the weekend, per se,
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very important. That's when I like totally turn off from work, on planning activities, trying to do fun stuff. But if I'm not disciplined during the week, I don't get to do that because I'll just sleep Saturday.
So there's 2 more questions. Next, we have a couple of questions from our participants. So the next question, and it's going to be really interesting asking this question, given that the 2 of you are in industries that are perceived to work you over the 40-hour work week, traditional work week. So the question that I have is about work-life balance. How have you been able to establish that, and how many hours do you work in an average week, and then what do you usually do to wind down after work? So it's like a 3-pronged question. And then Devin, if you wanted to start us off.
All right. Yeah, sure. So work-life balance, definitely something that's learned. I inherently did not have, I don't know if I knew what that word meant in college, which it was a challenge for me because my tendency was to overwork myself. But, understanding value outside of what I produce from a work perspective, and let me think about this a little bit. So I think that, like I mentioned, weekends are big for me. And so I like to put down my cell phone, my work phone, and just not look at any work. Maybe I'll think about it a little bit, but that's really big, and just allowing myself to understand that there's a cycle for everything, and there's a time to work and a time not to work. I think in the question it asked how many hours do you usually work. I mean, between 40 and 50, maybe more. I don't know. I don't track them very easily, but I don't work on the weekends at all. I can't remember the last time I opened my laptop the weekend. So. When I am working, I'm working. When I'm not working, I try not to work. But obviously, it takes a lot of discipline. And the toughest time is during the week to stop and get off work and, have something else to think about or do or occupy my mind.
Cool. And then I'm sorry.
I want to make sure I answered the whole question.
Yeah, because it's a lot. I'm sorry. I'm really good at long questions.
What do I do to wind down from work? Sometimes walking around the neighborhood, which sounds kind of lame, but it works. And then just being outside, right? We all like study inside, we work inside, we live inside. And then cooking is good for me too. Or just sitting there and doing nothing. That sounds really dumb too, but sometimes you just need to go sit on a park bench. It's the most productive thing you can do sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, because for myself, what has happened now, because I work such a job where you have to be on deck all the time, I literally go home, cook dinner, and turn on How I Met Your Mother, which I've watched now the entire series 20 something times now, because it's I need to be able to know that I'm going to laugh and also really unwind. And also my home time is my home time. I've created a nice little sanctuary at home, so it's definitely my spot to unwind. Or I'll even last night I went to Amherst Coffee, which Tiffany, you'll be shocked at the renovation.
It looks great. Yeah. It's amazing.
It's gorgeous. It's bigger. The bar is really nice, and they've made it into a bar. And so I just went there writing last night after work, and it was just really nice to use that as time to unwind, which was fun.
Yeah.
And then Tiffany, if you want to talk a little bit about your work-life balance, how many hours a week do you work, and then what you do to unwind when you get off work?
So I actually learned this the hard way. I think now on average I work about 40 to 50, but there was a period of time where I worked over 50 hours. I think it's really dependent on whether or not the organization or the company has a project going on. So if we have a big project going on, and we have a really hard deadline, I get really stressed out and I'm very much like, oh, gotta get it done kind of attitude. Um, and I think I did that the first 3 or 4 months when I started my new job, because I was starting a new program, putting the program together from ground up, and I was just kind of like, how do I do this? And I would work after 5, and I would actually catch myself, checking my emails on the weekend. And I learned the hard way in the sense that I was actually really burnt out by my 4th month. And I told myself, I'm not going to do this anymore. So like Devin, I put my work phone, the minute like I'm not working, I actually turn my work phone off now. So I'm not hesitant to look at it. That's how part of my problem was, that like I kept looking my emails on my work phone because it was just such easy access. And so now I stopped doing that. And again, when I'm off the clock and I don't think about it. And then I will schedule, again, because I have evening meetings sometimes, I will put in my schedule unavailable. Like I won't really say what I'm doing, but I'll just say unavailable. So that's letting my coworkers know not to schedule any meetings at that time. I won't be here and I'm not going to make time for it. So it's just really kind of setting the ground rules on my end and letting them know like I need that space. But it's so important to keep that work-life balance, because again, if you're not, it's kind of just like eating healthy. If you're not in good shape and good health, you're not going to do your job well. And I knew, by month 4, if I was going to change anything, I was going to start getting jaded and get super sick of my job, which sucks because I was only 4 months in and I actually do love it. So it's really important just to kind of say no or turn off the phone and step away from it. So
Cool. And I'm actually really, really happy that that we attacked that question at the very end, because one of the things that I've noticed about UMass students, given that I'm currently here now staff, is that everyone is so ambitious, very, very, very ambitious, where they have like 3 or 4 majors, a minor, they have a job, they're like involved in all these RSOs, they're always working, like they feel like they have to be on all the time. And I feel like as young people, that is the culture that we've kind of grew up in, and this whole notion of you have to be on all the time. And I think it's because this is an opportunity for us to build our resumes and to show that we have the potential to be able to work jobs, which we're now given the perception that your job is your only primary thing when you leave school. And what I'm loving about this panel is that it's not. Like, we really need to be a lot more well balanced than what we are, because we are humans. Like, we are well-rounded people. Even when we were students at different times in our lives, of course, we had a lot of very different things going on in terms of social life and also coursework and also work itself. So I'm actually glad that I originally was going to ask that question earlier, but I decided to move it a little bit later. So the last question that I have for the two of you before we open it up to Q&A is, what advice would you have for a recent graduate who's looking to create this new life for themselves after they finished at UMass? And Tiffany, if you wanted to take the question first, that would be awesome.
I kind of see it like undergrad, you're kind of told get involved and meet other people. And I think that's kind of the same idea. If you keep that mindset going into post-grad, getting involved, figuring out what your interests are, but then, find groups, free clubs, free classes, and this way you'll be able to still maintain the life you had in college, and since you're creating that new circle, but with same like-minded people. Like, I think I was actually talking to someone the other day and I was saying, oh, like this reminds me of like doing homework back in college, just scheduling your assignments, making sure you hit those deadlines, but making time for your friends and your just overall well-being. And I think having the mindset of just going out there, I know adult life sounds scary, but don't be scared and just go out there. You'll be really satisfied at the end.
Cool, thank you. And then Devin?
Yeah, I mean, I think intentionality is huge, and like understanding, like when I was in college, like what I thought I want, like you had mentioned, what I thought I wanted out of after college was, a high-paying job, an opportunity to go live in another area, to like do something, achieve something, whatever that was. And like, if you really ask me, like, I don't know what really it was, but now when like those things, like they don't really matter to me. Like, yeah, like I like my job. It's challenging. I get to really use my, what I developed when I was in college. But, those like material things, if I was back in college, like talking to myself, I would say, hey, like, really, I would push myself to really understand, like, okay, well, what are those other non-tangibles, socially, emotionally, that you care about. And I probably wouldn't have known what those things were, but it would at least allow me to understand that like those things exist, and they matter a whole lot more than like what your paycheck is, or what your job is, or where you live. Because no matter what your circumstance is, if you have, if you're not overworking yourself, if you're liking what you're doing, if you have a healthy social life, that's something that you can do anywhere. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Doesn't matter like where you're from. And it really allows you the flexibility to understand, to like build that career path, right? And you don't need 3 majors to do that. You don't need, and that's something that, our society really values, achievement and degrees, and high paying jobs. But it's something where like what I loved about UMass was like our great RSO culture, where like we were encouraged to like get involved. I love the communities that you see with some of the groups, more in some than others. And that's something that I think, we really need to continue to do, but then like raise to the next level and make sure that we're getting more people involved. So that they know how to do it, and then they can bring that into the real world. Because it's really important.
Cool. And this actually takes us to the very first question that we got in Q&A from Diana, who I knew as a student as well, and who was extremely involved. So this is a good question to ask the two of you, given that I knew you both as student leaders, and both of you were extremely, extremely involved when you were on campus as well. So the question that Diana has is, as someone who was too involved in RSOs at UMass, how do you find organizations, clubs, volunteer places, and things like that in your new environments? And Devin, if you wanted to take that first.
Yeah. Too involved. I didn't know if too meant as well or too much.
I think it's a little bit of both, because the two of you, and including Diana, who asked the question, y'all were too involved, and like y'all were extremely involved, and too like very involved.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's funny because like most of the stuff I'm saying that I would give advice to someone, I could have used myself. But one of the biggest things that I learned through leadership training at work, or what I've learned like in the mission field, is that when you're like the job of a leader is very different than the job of someone who's on the team. And one of the things that leaders often neglect is their own health, and their own, like what they're supposed to get out of being on the team. Your role is very different, but it's still important that you're getting value out of that. So when I was the executive director of UPC, like I didn't care about my health when it came to like, am I putting too much into this? Is this healthy for me? And spent way too much time, worried about getting stuff done, as opposed to making sure I was getting something out of it. Where I learned now, and through that experience, and also through some of my the training and my real world experience, that you need to be taking care of your team. It's very important. But if you're not healthy, if you're burning out, if you are trying to achieve more than you're capable of, you're not going to win. And really the job of the leader is to make sure that you spread that burden across your team. So that's something that I don't know if that answers the question, but that's something that I learned in school, probably answering a couple more questions earlier.
Oh, yeah.
How I find places to help. I volunteer at an after school program for kids called Hope and Future. And I found that through affiliation with my church. And then there's so many opportunities in Hoboken area, the New York City area, just that people that just need to be loved, whether you're working at the homeless shelter or you go for a weekend to go paint. Also have been involved in a mission trip to go to Mexico, more of an international opportunity. But in any urban area, there are many organizations, there are many ways to get involved. I have a lot of friends that do mentoring for young children. There's so many opportunities, and not enough time and not enough people to do that. So.
And then Devin, this is a follow-up question, and when I go to Tiffany, I'm going to ask this as a follow-up question as well. Are you a member of any professional associations? And then like what type of activities, conferences, social opportunities do you have through those?
Professional organization.
So like anything that's affiliated with your job, if at all.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I have some friends that are like in this society of like women engineers or Hispanic engineers, but I'm neither of those, so I'm not in any of those organizations.
Okay.
Yeah, but they are out there. So.
Cool. Thank you. And then Tiffany, if you want to take the question, because actually I met the two of you because of your involvement as students on campus. Given that you were extremely involved as a student, how have you been able to continue that involvement through like finding community organizations, clubs, and volunteer things? How have you found those since you've graduated?
So I was just lucky enough that, being in Chi Omega, they have an alumni chapter, and I was the alumni relations as an undergrad. So I already knew that going into postgrad. But even so, I think just chatting with your friends and mentors, and getting involved. So, part of it is Googling. I'm a huge fan of Google, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But it's also just chatting with your, social circle. So I found the running group through my sisters, my biological sisters. And that's how I was able to, meet people at those running groups. And then joining the board for the alumni chapter, it was just chatting with older friends. I have dinners with my mentors, and I tell her some of my interests, things I want to be involved in, and they kind of keep their eyes and ears open. And then if they come across it over the internet or through their own networks, they'll kind of send it their way. And then I have you, Nicola, who sends me invites about networking events that are in the Boston area. So one of my actually close friends, Grace, she actually attended the most recent networking event at the UMass Club, and it's kind of stuff like that. And then she actually sent it to me. I didn't see that email, but your friends are almost your best resources in getting involved. And so that's kind of like how you would get involved in that sense. And yeah.
Are you a member of any professional associations at all with your job?
Yeah, so I'm not doing as much planning as I would like right now, but I am part of the American Planning Association, APA, for young professionals. They have also networking events and webinars that you can attend. And then I'm also just kind of part of a listserv that oftentimes will send out information about a professional workshop or a webinar that's coming up that could be pertaining to planners. So that kind of stuff I'll kind of keep my eye out for and particularly attend once in a while.
Cool. And then I have one more question for Q&A. And this is going to be an interesting question because UMass, with like taking vacations and things like that, you had a lot of time off at your disposal. You automatically had your summers off. You automatically had spring break off, holidays and things like that.
Yeah.
So how much vacation time do you get on your two jobs? And then how do you like plan out that time, and when do you take time off? So Tiffany, if you wanted to tackle that question first.
Oh my God, that's like the bane of my existence right now is vacation. Um, so as far as my job, I have 2-week vacation, and it is hard. I am not gonna lie, it's very hard. I took 3 or 4 days off in January for July 4th, highly requested by my parents. So we went on a July 4th road trip to Tennessee. And then I wasn't able to go on vacation for 5 more months. And I'm actually now going to be able to go to Portland in a few weeks. But it's hard. It really hard. You really kind of have to kind of divvy up your chips in a sense. So a lot of times friends will ask me, hey, like, do you want to go, I don't know, to Maine or Colombia? And I would oftentimes have to turn them down, unfortunately, because I just don't have the vacation time to go and travel as much. So I think, you know, when you first sign your contract and you know how many vacation days you have, you know, plan accordingly, let your friends know, and then you can kind of schedule times. But it's a really hard thing. You kind of have to give up certain trips and use your time wisely, unfortunately. But it's a lot different. You don't get as much free time as you had before.
Well, and then Devin, if you want to talk a little bit about how, like, what vacation time you have and how you use it.
Yeah. So I get 2 weeks as well, 12 days. So a little bit over 2 weeks. And yeah, it is hard, but you know, I really don't mind it that much. When I was in school, I think winter break was my biggest break. I did a lot of working in the summer, and doing like internships. So I was used to it, but it, you know, it is hard. It's hard to have to say no to friends or not be able to spend time with the family when they're going on vacation. My mother's a teacher, so she's, you know, she picked the right career. She always has something off. But I think part of it is just like making the best of like 3-day weekends feel like a week-long vacation now. So just make the best of the opportunities that you have. You know, be kind of strategic with your vacation days. Just taking the opportunity to be able to like work at home close to the holidays. I like doing that. Take half days then, and just like, you know, make the best of your weekends because they become extremely important when you only get two weeks of vacation.
Cool. So we are at the end of our time this evening. I want to thank you all for participating in today's Young Alumni Virtual Chat, Creating a Social Life for Yourself at UMass. We actually have another chat next week, same time on Wednesday, November 1st, on preparing for graduate school, where we will be talking with young alumni who have either attended graduate school or they're currently in a grad program right now, and they're going to talk about like the application process and personal experiences preparing for grad school. So in addition to the virtual chats, the Alumni Association has a variety of resources to support you as you begin to navigate your career and time beyond campus, including networking events, career development opportunities, and Alumni Advisors, which is an online networking and mentoring platform connecting you and with alumni in your field for career advice, informational interviews, and it's a lot to read, resume feedback, and mock interviews. To learn more about these resources, please visit our website at umassalumni.com. On behalf of the UMass Alumni Association, we would like to thank Devin and Tiffany for making the time to share their experiences and insight with us. Thanks again for joining us this evening. We hope to see you at other Alumni Association events in the future. Have a great evening and go UMass.